Yeah, Mattias, I'll go ahead and jump in and introduce myself. Now, I think there might be an issue with the audio on your end. So let's be sure that that's up and going, but I'll go ahead and just give a quick introduction. First of all, let me check here and be sure everybody can hear me appropriately. Okay, good. So I'm good here. So I'll go ahead and do a quick introduction. So we're thrilled that you're here to join us to learn more about AWS reInvent. So this is an exciting event, but let me just tell you, it's also overwhelming. And so that's why Mattias and I are here. And again, just to remind you that, again, we have a Cloud Guru, which is a Pluralsight company. We are excited that we're going to be able to be here to help you get ready for reInvent. We're going to be at reInvent to help you enjoy the event while it's there. And so we're going to be able to walk through and give you some critical information on what it's like to be at reInvent and how you can be successful. So first of all, I'm just curious in the chat, if you want to go ahead and post a note if you've been to reInvent or if this is your first time, because I really want to get a sense for those here that are watching, kind of where you're at and what you're looking to learn. So just want to go ahead and throw that out there. So be sure to do that. But let me go ahead and give you just...
Is this working now?
Hey, yes, we can hear you,
Oh
Mattias.
my goodness. I have no idea what in the world happened there. That was some odd stuff. Thank you so much, David, for jumping in and introducing everything. So yes, I was asking you to introduce yourself, and that's exactly what you did. I also wanted to introduce just the stream that we've got. We're going to be talking all about AWS reInvent 2022 and what you need to know before you go. So where did we leave off here? Do you want to bring me back in, because that was that was interesting. Sorry about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know that I ever quite got into introductions there. So maybe we start off with that. So Mattias, why don't you kick off with an introduction and then I'll introduce myself.
Sure. So I'm Mattias Andersson, one of the developer advocates at Pluralsight, which is a Cloud Guru is a part of Pluralsight now, and so I'm working with both A Cloud Guru and Pluralsight side of things, and getting to connect with the community. At the moment, we're doing this live stream before we go to reInvent, but I will definitely also be involved in a lot of the reInvent coverage on site and everything. So yeah, David, did you want to also introduce?
Absolutely. So I am a Pluralsight author. You might have, if you've taken any of the courses on cloud at Pluralsight, you might have had a chance to see some of my work. I also help organizations with their cloud strategy. And I'm just excited to be here to talk about reInvent, because not too long ago, I was in the same shoes as a lot of you, trying to figure out, hey, my first time, how do I actually survive this massive conference, and how can I be successful?
Yeah, I see we have some first timers in the chat, which is really great. Thanks for joining us here. We hope to give you a lot of good value. And one of the things I wanted to call out before we jump into everything is that we want this to be interactive. There's no reason why just the list of things that we have prepared is what we talk about. We want to talk about what matters most to you. So if you have questions, ask them on the chat, and we'll see what we can do to give you a hand with that. I also wanted to mention that this isn't just for people who are attending on site. If you're attending live, then that's great. But if you want to attend virtually, that totally makes sense. A lot of people are in that situation. And we definitely want to try and add value to you as well. And I was thinking about this earlier. What about if you're coming back to this stream after reInvent has already happened? I think that you might still get some value out of understanding what the conference is all about, and how you could potentially then jump into some of the replays, because there are lots of replays, and not just the party. I mean,
Absolutely.
like replays for sessions. So, yeah. Well, I guess one of the things we should start with is what reInvent is all about. So reInvent is AWS's, Amazon Web Services, big yearly conference where everything big happens. It's they save up a bunch of announcements and they pull some of the other ones forward in time, and it's a big event where they tell us all about all of the great stuff that's happening. But it's not just news either. There's a whole lot of stuff happening when everyone comes together, whether it's virtually or in person, to have a real community. And we learn from each other, we talk with each other, we go to all sorts of training sessions that have information. There's a trade show where all sorts of vendors are there to help people be able to use AWS more effectively, and all sorts of things. So it's a really big event. Is there something more you wanted to add about reInvent that I sort of missed there, David?
Well, I think the thing that's really critical to understand is, if you're in the cloud, if you're working in AWS on a regular basis, I mean, the announcements that happen at reInvent have the ability to to truly change how you do what you do. So it's not just something like, sometimes other conferences and you hear about announcements and it's like, oh, that's great. Like, no, you might be able to go build something more efficiently. You might be able to build something you couldn't have even built before based off of what gets announced. So to me, there's always a higher level of excitement going into an event like this rather than other events, because it really can change how you do what you do.
It really can. Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the themes of using AWS in general is that as time goes on, we get access to so much more capability than we could possibly be building on our own. But one of the key things there is that because there's so much going on, so much change, it's hard to keep up with it all. It's hard to move past the things that we know work for the thing that we've already done, the experience we
Yes.
already have, and push forward into the new innovative stuff that is really important for us in a technology career to be able to keep moving forward. So this is one of those really interesting milestones of a whole lot of change all at once. And the point of what we're trying to bring you all through our social channels and all of our coverage, blog posts, and all the different stuff that we're doing to cover this is to reach you in a way that's more efficient. You don't probably have time to go to all of the how many sessions are there? There are a lot of sessions, and it's not even possible to go to every one as a single person. Do you have any idea offhand, David? I have to double check.
2,677.
2,677. Now, to be fair, some of those are going to be repeat sessions, but even still,
Yes.
like, oh my goodness, yeah, that is just a lot. So the event is built around trying to enable all sorts of people to get the most value, and there's a lot going on in it. So that's sort of a high level description. Is there anything else that anyone watching wanted to ask about that? That we may have missed or wasn't entirely clear? By all means, just jump into the chat about that. So, all right, but as we're getting going, I guess one of the things to do, David, is to think back about AWS reInvents gone by, the past reInvents. When did you start going to reInvent, and what was your favorite memory from them?
Okay, that's great. It's a great question. So 2014, I actually went back and researched this so I could be sure I gave the right year.
Nice.
2014 was my first year. Now here's the crazy thing. And so part of just talking about this is talking about how much it's changed. When I was there were less than 6,000 people at the conference, right, for 2014.
Ooh, yeah.
So it was a much different event, and we'll talk about why in a little bit when we get into all the logistics of the event. But it was amazing because you got to go and just dive into all of these new things, and that part's the same. Just there's just tons of new things. But the thing to me that was one of my favorite memories was actually in that first year, because when I was there, Werner actually announced AWS Lambda. Like, I was there when that service was announced, and I remember kind of the anecdote with this. I was actually sitting next to a guy who was leading a part of Google Cloud Platform, and he was like, "Ooh, that's cool," right? And so I knew, like, okay, this is a pretty big deal, but I had no idea how that was going to affect, how I build things in the cloud, years and years on from that point. So that was kind of it for me. And I've been to 5 total reInvents. So I've been to a lot of them. There's a few of them I've missed across the years, but again, it's just continued to grow, more stuff, more content and all of that. But what about you, Mattias? What was your kind of favorite highlight and the first one that you were able to go to?
Yeah, so my first reInvent was reInvent 2016, which was this hoodie here.
The
By the
jacket.
way, every reInvent, there's a new hoodie. So that's one of the swag bits that you get from being live in person. Although there are some virtual ways. But anyway, I'm getting distracted. Okay, so 2016 was my first reInvent. And although some of the reInvent highlights included things like when they drove the semi trailer, the snowmobile on stage, I was there in the room and that was fun. But the real highlight for me was in at reInvent 2016 when I came to reInvent not really knowing exactly what to expect because it was my first one. I wound up bumping into the A Cloud Guru crew, the people who had made the A Cloud Guru courses and were a part of that. And I had used A Cloud Guru courses and training, been a part of that community virtually, but bumping into them on site and getting to be a part of that community in person was awesome. And it actually led to me joining A Cloud Guru and now Pluralsight as basically a complete change to what I've been doing, because I was working in software development and now I'm working with with this sort of thing, getting to connect with the community regularly, which is awesome. So that was really a highlight for me. Yeah. So before we move on, I wanna call out a blog post that we have. Calling it a blog post kind of undersells it, to be honest. It is a truly magnificent guide. We've got a link to it in the chat here. And we'll put a link in the description if you're watching a replay and not following along with all of the chat messages. But this is by Mark Nunakoven, and it is a gargantuan, but still very efficient, because you can jump to the key pieces of information you need, guide to AWS reInvent. And he has been putting this out for, let me see, I think he put that information in the guide. I think it was 2014 or something was his first one, or maybe it was, anyway, he's been doing it for a lot of years. He knows what he's doing. He covers the key points of what you need to know in a different way than what we're covering. So we're going to be giving some of the information from that, but also a lot of different color from our perspectives as we go through this. But I wanted to call it out, because if you're missing that, you're really missing out. All right. So I guess one last call out. The questions are available in the chat. I know that there are a lot of people who've joined us, but nobody has ventured a question yet. But that's all right. Let's move on to the way that reInvent works. Did you want to maybe talk a little bit about that, David, about registering and that sort of stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. And first, Mattias has already introduced this, but there's really two different ways, obviously, to experience reInvent. And we're going to spend some time talking about each of these, but the first is obviously in person. And as of the last time I checked, there are still some openings for tickets to be there in person. So if you're just like, hey, I want to do this, I want to go, and you haven't registered yet, you can still do that. You're going to go to the reInvent site, and you can go through and get your registration there. I believe it's $17.99, I think is the cost for a full conference registration, somewhere in that range. So again, it's an expensive investment, but again, it's an investment in a really good area where you can build a lot of relationships in person when you're there. But if you are not attending in person and you have the remote aspect to it, you can still register online to get access to their live sessions. And that's going to be critical. You'll be able to find out all of the announcements at the same time that everybody's there in the room. You're just going to get to do it from your couch sitting at home instead of having to travel to Las Vegas. So make sure to register for those as well. So either way, you can go to the same site, the same link that we've posted, and you can register there to be sure you have access either in person or remotely.
Yeah, there are definitely some benefits to both of those approaches. Now, one of the benefits of being in person is that you do get to bump into all of the people who are also there in person. Of course, the drawback is that you have to deal with flights and hotels, and registering for the conference is more costly, and you don't get to kick back in your bunny slippers and your bathrobe while you're watching the keynotes. Well, actually, you know what?
You could.
Maybe you could.
Theoretically.
Yeah, come to think of it, there's not, what's wrong with that?
If you do that, send us a picture, please.
I would love to see that. Yes. Who knows? Maybe we'll get flooded with hundreds of people going to reInvent keynotes with their bunny slippers and robes. That would be interesting. I'd love it. Yeah, but the virtual experience is a little bit different. The in-person experience obviously has all of that in-person connection. One of the key differences between in-person and virtual is not just sort of how you watch the things. You can get it in your living room, but one of the material things to understand about that is that going to each individual room, like getting from place to place at reInvent, it is a timely thing. It's a time-consuming thing. It doesn't have to be wasted time, though, because a lot of time along the way, you'll meet people, see things that are really interesting, things that you didn't expect to necessarily come across. But you do have to figure that into your calculations. So the first tip is wear great shoes. Shoes that you are happy to walk all day in if you are at reInvent in person. And based on the air, a lot of people also recommend that you bring some chapstick or lotion or something like that, because it's a drier sort of environment.
And drink a lot of water.
Yes, that is also a very good idea. Yep. Often as a part of the reInvent swag, there's like a water bottle, the refillable water bottle that you get sort of when you sign in for your swag, when you get your hoodie and your water bottle. And potentially some other things, especially if you have AWS certifications and all that stuff. The swag is definitely a fun part of being there in person, but it is also a very great experience to be a part of it virtually. So yeah, so actually, maybe when we were talking about like getting from place to place, maybe this is a good time to bring up that image about the layout of Las Vegas's reInvent sort of thing. So I don't know if we've got that coming up on the screen. I don't see it yet, but if you scroll down here we are. Yeah. So if you take a look at this, the number 3 close to the top there is the Venetian, and that's sort of like the home base to everything. But even walking from number 3 to number 2, which is the next sort of hotel casino right next to it, that can take like, I guess, 20 minutes or so just to walk from one to the other. And even more so if you're in the conference room for the Venetian and you're trying to get to a conference room in one of the other hotels, because you have to get all the way out of the hotel and then along the road and then back in. It can be quite a long experience. And for some of them, like number 5 down there, MGM Grand, that'll take even longer to walk. Like it takes quite a long time to walk. I don't know what the specific walking timeline is, but I would say that you should budget, 45 minutes at least, just if you're trying to get down there. But there are shuttles to take you from place to place. Unfortunately, the shuttles, although they leave from a closer place in the conference area, they're much closer to the sessions themselves, where the stops are for the shuttles. There can sometimes be a lineup for the shuttles, and also you can have to wait for a shuttle to come, and then that shuttle has to deal with traffic. So even if you've got a shuttle, it's going to take some time to get from one place to another.
Yep.
Hey, we have a question coming in here. What are the lunch options to the south at MGM Grand? So the main lunch option is at the Venetian. I haven't double checked the details, but I wouldn't be concerned. If there are sessions at one of the hotels, they generally have reasonable access to lunch. So
I have the answer. I have the answer.
Oh, excellent. I would
so
definitely
just through my quick perusal of the session catalog. So if you're at Caesars Forum, which they've started putting a lot of sessions there, there's lunch there. Mandalay Bay, MGM Grand, and the Venetian, and the Wynn. So you're going to be close to one of those locations. Chances are, no matter which session you're at, they kind of have them strategically placed there. And just as a note, you can do kind of what I just did too. You can actually go under the session catalog, just search for lunch, and if even there's a specific day you just want to double check, you can check that as well, and it'll tell you exactly the locations. It'll even tell you the specific room that lunch will be served in each day.
Excellent. And one extra thing I'll add is that if you're in the trade show area, that's not too far away from lunch options either. And every once in a while, actually, I think generally they have like box lunches that are out just outside of the trade show. So you can grab that and take a seat at some of the seating that they have, or take it somewhere else, maybe even back to your hotel room for a bit of an afternoon siesta or something, whatever. Although depending on where your hotel room is, that may or may not be, a very long process to get all the way back to your hotel room. But yeah. Thanks for checking in on that, David. That's awesome. All right, so that's like layout. And were you going to mention something about taxis, David?
Yeah. Let me just go ahead and say, and I know all of us, we want to figure out ways that we can shortcut these waits that Mattias is talking about. And some of the times you'll have people say, oh, well, there are these 2 sessions I want to go to and they're really close, but that's okay. I'll just take a taxi. This is going to solve that problem. Well, the truth is those taxi lines, maybe it might be a miracle and it'll be short, but in a lot of cases, you'll wait just as long for those taxi lines as you would to get on the shuttle. You still can do it if there's a specific place you want to get to, but just know that that's not a quick process either. And you could say the same thing here for Uber and Lyft and other things. It's just everybody, there's almost 100,000 people that are going to be there that are trying to get to similar places to what you're trying to get to, and it's just going to take time.
It is going to take time. That is the key thing to take away from this. But don't worry about it taking time, because it's really not about making sure that you have filled up your session with 100 different places to be and all of that stuff. Yes, you do want to go and be a part of those things, but the biggest part of reInvent is the community and getting to bump into people. The hallway track, as many have called it, that is really the one that's unexpected in that you can't plan, but it's a really valuable thing.
Yeah.
All right, now we got another question here about the session numbers, and I'll get to that in just a second. The question about breakfast options, I think that breakfasts are actually the same as lunches. They just happen earlier in the day, but pretty much the same sort of a deal.
Same locations.
Yeah. And they generally happen like up before the keynotes, and you can definitely take advantage of that, or you can do your own breakfast thing if you're wanting to, of course. Now, a question about the session numbers and the hotels. So the session numbers, now's a great time to just talk a little bit about that. There are two parts to the session number. One is the track, and one is the actual number that identifies the session. So the tracks sometimes are sort of hotel by hotel. Like you may wind up having one of the tracks at one hotel. Serverless sessions are at that particular place, but maybe they'll be sprinkled as well. The numbers are not indicating that. They're indicating levels and just different ones. So did you want to talk a little bit about some of those things, David?
Yeah, absolutely. So really, these are kind of what we would say college level type numbers, right? So when we're looking at a 100 course, this is going to be a true, a beginner course. So if you have no knowledge about a specific topic and you see there's a 100 level course on that, great. That is exactly the kind of course you want to go to, because that's going to give you a lot of the foundational elements. Once you get to 200 level, that's going to be a little bit more advanced, but that's if you have just a basic knowledge, you can go into those 200 level sessions and get a ton out of it. The 300 level sessions are really, just speaking from personal experience, like I tend to go to a lot of 300 level sessions when I go to sessions. And these are for people that are actually building things, and they want to talk with other people that, have some great tips on how you can do things better, how you can better use services, how you can better really take advantage of what's there. And then when you get to the 400 levels, this is where you get the information on how things work, like how to maybe, do things at hyperscale, how to, the things that are really kind of expert level topics. But again, I would encourage you, if it's something you're interested in and you say, oh, well, I'm not an expert. Hey, don't be scared about going to these sessions. This information is going to be very approachable, and it's going to help you understand. Maybe you don't understand 100% of it, but it's going to give you a lot more information on how stuff works. Like, for example, if you're into serverless, you might be interested in going to the How Lambda Works session, which is a 400 level session. You'll get all the background information, which can in some cases help you build better for Lambda because you understand better what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, that's a great point, that you can get so much awareness of the depth of what's going on in a particular space. There is so much engineering effort that happens to make these services available to us in the really rock solid way that they are, that getting some insight into that really, I think it's often reassuring just to hear about all of that stuff that's going on. But it's also, it's really insightful so that you can avoid tripping on some of those leaks in the abstraction layer that might still exist here or there. You mentioned serverless, and cold starts are one of the things that, that's kind of like this boogeyman of oh no, cold starts. But going to one of those sessions like How Does Lambda Work will show you exactly what's going on, why cold starts happen, and then it's really natural to structure things in a way to avoid more of those cold starts. You can actually wind up with much faster Lambda executions, much faster cold starts, much faster systems that you're building because you understand those things. So definitely a really valuable thing to check out. So now, we're getting some questions about about the individual sessions, but I wanted to make sure that we cover one of the really key parts of reInvent. Do you want to talk a little bit about the keynotes, David? And because those are such an important part of the reInvent experience.
Yeah, and this is huge, and it's huge whether you're attending in person or whether you're remote. So I'll go ahead and say this. I don't think I've said this yet. I'm actually not going to be there in person this year. I had some schedule conflicts, so unfortunately, I won't be there. So I'm going to be attending remote. And so this is just as important for me as it is for Mattias, who will be there in person. So let me go ahead and just walk through a few bits of this. First of all, unlike reInvent of years past, there is not just one big keynote or two big keynotes. We have several keynotes that are spread across the entire week. So that's going to kick off Monday in the evening at 7:30 p.m. We're going to have Pete DeSantis, who's going to be walking through all the aspects of infrastructure, as well as talking about, the physical stuff around AWS. I also suspect, this is just a little prediction here, sustainability is going to be a topic in this one as well, as we talk about more sustainable ways to use the cloud. So if you're into that stuff, absolutely, like, you want to be there. If you're into networking, if you're into really managing lots of virtual machines, this will be big. But then on Tuesday, we get what I think a lot of people would consider to be the biggest keynote of the week, which is the CEO keynote. So Adam's keynote is going to be at 8:30 a.m., so bright and early on Tuesday. So you might want to watch how late you stay out Monday night. Just a little helpful note there. But this is where we're going to get
and schedule your breakfast.
Yes,
schedule
exactly.
your breakfast time. So
breakfast starts at 6:30 a.m. So get up and get out early to get to that keynote.
Oh, and I just got to throw this in there.
Yeah.
Breakfast is not just like go and get food sort of a thing. A lot of people talk about how when they go to reInvent, they don't want to miss the meals because breakfast is about connecting with more people that are there at reInvent, right? So you grab your food, you sit down at a table and you meet new people, and everyone's doing that. So it's a really, it's actually a really positive part of the experience. So don't just
100%.
skip it. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And also too, if for you, it's like, no, you just need your Starbucks in the morning. You'll walk right by a Starbucks on the way. Be sure you're chatting with the people you're in line with. I made some great connections last year while I waited in the Starbucks line before keynote.
Awesome, yeah.
But with that too, again, that keynote on Tuesday is going to have announcements across really all areas of AWS, right? So anything is fair game in that keynote. There also, will be a lot of talks about statistics and how AWS is doing compared to competition, those kind of things. We get to Wednesday. Those of you in the data science and AI ML space, you are going to want to make sure you're there in the Wednesday morning keynote that Swami has, which is going to be covering all of those areas. And so we saw a lot of great announcements, actually a surprising amount of announcements that came out with a lot of additions to SageMaker last year in this keynote. So you'll want to be there for that. The next one that we have is the partner keynote. Now, this is Wednesday later in the day, Wednesday afternoon. Now, for some of you, this is not going to be as big of a deal, but if you're a part of a business that actually basically you base your business off of doing business with AWS and building solutions on AWS, this one is going to be essential to better understand how to take advantage of the partner network and the capabilities that AWS provides with that. But if you're there and you're saying, hey, it's my first reInvent, I'm just here as myself, I'm trying to learn all I can, you could probably skip that one and you'd be okay. But then we have on Thursday in the morning, 8:30 a.m., Werner's keynote. Now, this is varied year to year on the exact content of what's included, but you can guarantee if you're a developer, you want to be at this keynote. He's going to cover aspects of just how to really follow best practices on AWS, what those best practices are. Sometimes there will be some announcements sprinkled in there, but it's really going to be about understanding, again, from somebody who knows better than anybody else, how to truly build solutions on AWS.
I love it. We'll put a link in the chat for all of the keynotes. You can take a look at the schedule of all of these. I just wanted to call out as well that there really is so much value in attending, especially that Tuesday morning keynote. That is the one where just so much happens. It is really key. And it's just like, it's such an important part of the whole reInvent timeline, because one of the things to understand about the way that AWS reInvent works is that it is extremely well planned. Like their logistics are seriously impressive. Year to year, it is amazing. Now, this year, I think we're going to have 50,000 attendees, which is for post-pandemic, post all the lockdowns anyway, that is a lot of people, 50,000 people, right? So to have everyone organized and to have all of the material organized so that everything works really well it's impressive. So one of the key things to call out is that as the keynote goes, there are going to be announcements made. And when an announcement is made, like the second that those words are spoken and it goes out on the stream and it's like available live to the people in the room, and that is like button press and it's launch, everything lights up. AWS has got a whole bunch of stuff prepared for every one of those individual points in time. So blog posts go live. And those blog posts are maybe like a high level, this was an announcement. They include like here's how you work with this thing. This is maybe some customers who have had early access and what their experiences were. Different people like in developer advocates at AWS have gone and built demos using it. So you can see how it looks and works and get an idea for what it's going to mean for you. So this is on the screen right now, we've got a picture of Jeff Barr from last year saying that these were the things that he worked on, his blog posts. And he leads a team of people where they have even more than this. So it is just a really impressive thing. However, one of the other really important things to understand is that the second that one of those things goes live, it's not just the information is public from the perspective of the blog posts and everything. Also, the sessions that relate to that particular thing are then released. So in the session catalog, a lot of people in the keynotes are refreshing the session catalog as something gets announced because they want to jump into the sessions that either have changed names from something generic like, oh, what's new in this space? And now it's like, get hands-on with this particular new thing that we just announced. Or sometimes a completely new session gets added. Do you want to talk a little bit about your experience with that, David?
Yeah, it's it's crazy because one of the things, and I think Mattias and I were both around for this, one of the things that was announced during a keynote, and I don't remember off the top of my head which year this was, but there was this unit you could get to learn programming computer vision, and it was called Deep Lens. Well, they announced this during the keynote, and they also announced they would be doing workshops at reInvent on Deep Lens, and everyone who went to the workshop got one for free. So let me just assure you, like, people were pulling their phones out. They were trying to get into those workshops, and that was actually a workshop type session. We'll talk more about different types of sessions here in just a minute. But that one was very well attended, but those were booked up, I mean, within minutes of the announcements that was going to be there. So you do have to be able to move quickly, but here's another catch, right? Just because you couldn't get something reserved the first time around, that doesn't mean somebody's not going to potentially unreserve it later. Or if it's something you really want to be a part of and you don't have a reservation, you can show up, and there always will be a small handful of people that don't show up. So if you're there early enough that you're maybe one of the first few in line, you might still be able to get into those. But yes, there will be at every reInvent some highly coveted sessions that come out of the announcements at the keynote.
Yeah, so the getting into those sessions can be a little bit difficult, but one of the things to call out about that Deep Lens announcement where we got hands-on with the Deep Lens and got one of them is that they added, what was it, 20 repeats or something like that? Like they keep adding more repeats when things fill up. They're like, oh, more people. Now, they must have been planning this one because they had enough actual Deep Lenses on site to be able to give everyone one. But in general, they do work through those things to make sure that everyone can have the best experience possible. So did you want to talk a little bit about, you mentioned workshop, and we had some questions also about the different types of things. So I think this would be a great time to go through that a little.
Yeah, and I'll talk through just a few examples of these, and Mattias, feel free to jump in with your thoughts on any of these as well. But you know, most of the sessions you're going to see are just going to be breakout sessions, right? And this is going to be a session where you go into a room, and you're going to have a speaker on stage. They're going to be walking through slides, just explaining, you know, whatever the topic is. And again, the vast majority of sessions fall into that category. We've already talked about keynotes as another option, but we also have things like chalk talks. And I really enjoy the chalk talks that I get to go to. So this is where you go in, and you're generally your presenters for that session, they're going to be people that are working in the specific area day in and day out. So a lot of times you'll see people that are under the, you know, kind of the consulting side of AWS. They're coming in to give chalk talks, and they're building these AWS solutions on a daily basis. And while they might have some prepared slides, a lot of it is more conversational, and they'll take some time to actually pull out what you're building and maybe give you some advice on how they would do things with that. So chalk talk is very valuable if you have some experience in building, just to kind of help move forward with that. In addition, we also have leadership sessions, and again, for if you're there and you're a developer and you're just trying to go and learn, you might not have as much interest in these, but these are going to be a lot around, you know, kind of industry trends and helping to understand where things are going. And again, you're going to get AWS's perspective kind of on the whole digital landscape from those leadership sessions? That's just a handful,
And
I think.
just to
Go
throw
ahead, sorry.
this in there, they kind of know what they're doing in terms of like the cloud landscape. So, learning what they're seeing is actually really valuable for the rest of us,
Yes.
right? Like,
Well, and
yeah,
I'll say this too. If you are in consulting at all, and I spent a lot of my career in consulting, you need to be in those sessions because you're going to get a better sense about the digital landscape. And these are going to be talking points you'll probably turn around and use with your clients like immediately after reInvent. So yeah, this
yeah.
is a big thing for that.
I would actually call out that even if you're not consulting, these things will come up in the conversations that you're having with your organization. If you're in leadership, these are the conversations you're going to be having with the other people in leadership and casting vision for the rest of the team so they understand where you're going. But if you're on those teams and you're not making all of those decisions, you're still going to wind up in conversations with them. And you need to understand what challenges they're facing, why they're making some of the decisions they're making in leadership, and how you can then cooperate with them to align everyone together to succeed as an organization.
Yeah.
So these are really valuable things. One of the other things I wanted to call out about Chalk Talks is that a lot of times with those Chalk Talks, it's bring your own problem. Like bring something that you want to talk about. You could jump in and just hear what other people have brought as well, but it's actually a really valuable opportunity to take something that's specific to you and have real experts talk through it with you. They'll on a chalkboard or a whiteboard or whatever, and literally like, okay, so this is the type of thing you've got right now, and what if you did it this way? Oh, well, what about these trade-offs? And how about this option? And all of this stuff is so valuable. Even if you don't come away with I've solved all the problems, the thought process that you are hearing as they're going through that decision-making and trade-off analysis is so valuable. So yeah, definitely jump into those.
One more I'll add, one more session type. I know there's a bunch listed, but that's super valuable is the workshop. Because if you're coming to reInvent and you say, hey, I want to learn more about this, maybe you want to learn more about serverless. That's kind of been our de facto example throughout this webinar. But if you want to learn more about serverless, great. You could go to a multi-hour workshop that's going to take you through. You're going to have scripted steps to follow. So you don't have to have any fear about, I don't know, I'm not going to know what to do. No, it's going to completely tell you step by step what to do. And you're going to have somebody there. A lot of times we'll see the people that are on the DevRel teams at AWS lead these sessions. They'll explain to you why you're doing it this way, what's the value of this approach, and you'll get to walk through it. And there will be plenty of time to complete the workshop. So you'll be able to walk away having actually built something in the cloud. So if you're new, there might be a ton of value in going to these workshop sessions.
And there are people there walking around, so you can ask whatever questions when you get stuck, right? Like it's literally a very supportive environment. They want you to succeed and have that experience so that you can walk away with it. That's a really awesome thing. I wanted to add one more thing. There are things in the session, sometimes they're like party type things, and sometimes they're things like game day. So game day, just to call out there, and some of these like jams, they're where people sort of get together and they form either teams in advance, but I generally have gone and done the impromptu teams of like, oh, hey, I guess we're a team. And then you jump in and you do some stuff. So there's like security jam where you're working through security problems, or like different types of scenarios as a group where you're competing with all the rest of the people in the space, the other teams, and you come away with a lot of like real hands-on experience, connections with other people. It's a really great thing to consider adding to your schedule, but it does often take like a whole chunk. So if you're hoping to get like all of the learning sessions and different Chalk Talks or whatever, sometimes you might want to look for like, oh, is there a repeat of this particular thing? So I can move that to another day and then like block off this time for the game day. So the way I sort of start building my schedule is keynotes first, and like the core sort of events, and then those big block things, and then try to fill in all the rest of them. And then whether I make it to all of those, not so much.
And that's a key point to mention. Yes. Yeah, I mean, just going off that, I mean, I agree with you 100%. The first time I went to reInvent, I felt like I was bound like by law to do the schedule that I had planned, right? And I think one of the things you learn the more you go is that, the goal is for you to get the most out of it and for you to learn the most. That's what everybody wants for you there. So if you want to look through, if you want to go ahead, like we could talk a little bit here about just how to reserve, like how to know what to prioritize. So if there's something you're really interested in, based on what one of the things we mentioned earlier, you want to get that in your schedule, and then you want to make sure that you don't book anything right before to right after. Because as we talked
Yes.
about the travel time, those kind of things, that's going to be a problem. So go through first and highlight those, hey, absolutely have to be at those things. Go ahead and put those on your schedule. And if you see that, oh no, there's a conflict, like Mattias mentioned, in many cases, there are repeat sessions. And actually, they're making it easier to find those in the session catalog. So you can go through and quickly say, hey, I couldn't do this one on Tuesday, but I can do it on Thursday, and it fits in my schedule. That's great. Go through that whole process. But like Mattias mentioned, if you find that there's something more valuable, then do that, right? And that can be like, one of the things I think that is extremely undervalued. If you have a speaker that you really were excited about what they shared and you've got some questions, go up and talk to them after the session and
Yes.
be able to
Yes.
get some real insights from them. And hey, maybe that'll even be a contact that you can now add to kind of your network of people that you can kind of keep those relationships with going after reInvent.
Yeah, so just to talk about that, like that is one of my favorite things to do. When I go to a session, I'll often walk up to the sort of speaker mingling area after the session, not because I specifically have questions to ask, but because I want to listen to all of the other people's
Yes.
questions
Yes.
and hear what they have to say about it. So the speaker will say, "Oh, that's some really good feedback," and they'll note down because AWS is customer obsessed, right? Like they're constantly looking for that feedback. They're like, "Oh, why are you doing it like that? Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that." Making notes. And then you're learning from the other people asking their questions of what challenges they're facing. Sometimes you'll suggest, well, what about this thing? And then maybe they'll be like, oh, that's a great idea, or and then they'll learn, or they'll say, oh, well, that's not possible because of this thing, and then you'll learn. So there's always so much learning going on for those conversations. I definitely recommend them. And often those conversations they go on for a while, and eventually the speaker looks around and says, "Oh, they're starting the next session. Well, let's move
Right.
this out to the hallway." And
Every time. Every single
yeah,
time.
yeah. So, like David mentioned, the whole bumping right up against each other is probably not the most successful, partly because you'll want to give yourself the ability to get sucked into some of these things. Although, if you did sign up for the next session, just it's fine to blow it off. It's like it's okay. But that actually ties into the next part of this, which is when you're going to a session, you have to be there. If you've reserved it, you have to be there early enough to claim that reservation. You can't just walk up like 10 minutes into the session or even right as the session is starting and get your reservation. They free up the reservations for the standby line before the session starts so that they can fill up all the seats. So there's a certain grace period, like you have to be there a certain amount in advance. But I don't remember if it's 5 minutes or 10 minutes. They change it also year to year because they're always trying to tweak this to make it the best experience for everyone. But don't feel bad if you don't have a reservation. If there was something you wanted to go to, it's very possible that you'll be able to make it, especially if you go early. If you're at the front of the standby line, you're
Yes.
guaranteed to get in. I mean, I with 99.99 whatever
Pretty
percent
much.
certainty, right? Like
Pretty
it's
much. Yes.
there's going to be someone who doesn't show up that did have a reservation. If you're really at the back of the standby line and it's a really popular session, don't get your hopes up too high. So if there's something important, go early. So
Well, and as a note here, I don't know that we've said this yet. I want to be sure that everybody gets this. A vast majority, especially of pretty much all the breakout sessions, as well as obviously all the keynotes and leadership sessions, are going to end up online after, right? So these things will be
yeah,
available on demand. Now, obviously, the keynotes and the leadership sessions are also available live. But this is where if you're going to a breakout session and either you couldn't make it in or you couldn't make it there because you got stuck talking to the previous speaker or whatever, don't worry about it. You will have plenty of time to go back and catch these sessions. And a lot of times, even sessions, here's the funny thing, even sessions I went to in person, if they were super valuable, like I've been to some of Rick Houlihan's talks in the past, and it's like it's so valuable, I go back and watch it again on YouTube to actually like take more detailed notes than what I took when I was there in person. So it's not like a, oh no, one chance or else I'll miss it forever kind of situation.
no, in fact, in some cases, I've gone back in the evening and watched a couple of sessions at like 2x speed or something so that I get through
Yes.
the same information. And then I can talk about it the next day because I've seen the stuff. Like I made it to the session, but there was something more valuable at that time slot. So I didn't actually
Right.
make it to that specific session. And especially if there's like a lot of, transit from one location to the other. Were you going to say something
Absolutely.
there, David?
No, you're good.
Oh, okay. I was just going to mention that in terms of sort of the area, like let's take the Venetian for example. There's the trade show hall and like the keynote and the food area, and they're all sort of like big rooms. But it's not too far of a walk to go to like some open spaces where you can sit and chat with people, and the swag desk and stuff is there. But also there are a whole bunch of different session rooms that are quite close, and so there are multiple levels, and so you'll be able to find the session room fairly easily. There's lots of good signage and lots of people that are really helpful to direct you. So if you're in the right conference sort of center, because you're at the right hotel, I mean, then generally it's not too far to go from one session to the other. There are a few things like the theater sessions are sometimes a little bit further of a walk down the halls and stuff like that to get to those ones. But I wouldn't be too concerned about that. But do arrive early anyway, is I guess just one of the tips there. So, but we did get some questions about like how long does it take to get from place to place, and how long or how much earlier do you have to get there, and can you get in if you haven't reserved? I hope we've answered those questions. If we haven't answered something, then just ask it again in the chat. A question about workshops. Do the workshops get recorded in YouTube? I don't think that the workshops do. So those are one of the ones that you want to hit in person, and the Chalk Talks definitely don't. So
Right.
you are also going to want to try and take advantage of those. But fundamentally, the theme really is try to get as much value as you can out of the opportunities that you have. And the opportunities will present themselves differently than you expected, right? Like you have a plan, but you don't have to follow it because something even better than your plan is coming up. And that is just the recurring theme that I hear over and over again. So don't miss the keynotes if you can help it, because those are going to be so they're going to be so core to the rest of the conversations that you're having with other people. The talks are going to be based on stuff that was in the keynote. They'll say, okay, so you remember that that Adam mentioned this thing in his session, and now we're going to dig into that. He talked about these different clients, but now we're going to give you a whole bunch more information. So you have some context. If you didn't catch the keynote, you can still get value out of the sessions, but it's helpful to sort of tie it all together, especially as different services connect with other ones. So if you arrive at a workshop late, you will lose your spot. There is a possibility, if it is an underfilled workshop, that they may let you in anyway, just because you've become a standby person and they might have a spot for you. But at that time, cutoff time, there are no more reservations. The reservations disappear and everyone becomes a standby. So you have to make sure that you get to everything that you really want to get to in advance. So yeah, no problem. Happy to help. So where are we now? What do we have next? David, did you
Yeah.
have something that I've missed?
Well, I think it's going to be helpful at this point just to kind of summarize all the tips and tricks that we've kind of talked about through this, so that we can make sure everybody kind of gets a condensed list, and we'll just hit on a couple of these, and then we'll be able to jump into kind of any further questions you guys have. But
Yeah,
I
that
think one
sounds
of the
great.
ones that Mattias had mentioned here that's so critical: bring comfortable shoes and stay hydrated. Right? It is a vast space you're going to be in. So both of those things will help you navigate wherever you're at in reInvent. And kind of one of the things Mattias mentioned, and this is a huge one, is stay close to the Venetian if you can, because this is where we're going to have pretty much most all the keynotes. You're going to have a vast majority of the sessions. Now, the only exception to this rule, I would say, is if you have if there's maybe a specific topic that you're really interested in that maybe is more at another hotel. But in general, stick there. Do you want to talk real quickly about the certification lounge, Matthias?
Yeah, actually, that's something that I may have mentioned just in passing when we were talking about the sort of the layout. But the certification lounge is an excellent tip to understand. If you get any AWS certification, whether it's the cloud practitioner or whether it's a specialty or a professional associate, any of them, they will get you into the AWS certification lounge, and they always have snacks and drinks. It's great.
Yes.
It's a place to go and hang out. There's a place to charge your stuff. desks to sit at if you want to work, or nice comfy chairs to sit down on, and a lot of other people to chat with if you want to, or not if you don't. It's a really great space to be. So that they might even have a couple of them, the certification lounges, because sometimes the non-Venetian hotels, if people are spending more time there, they want to let them also have some of that experience. But the key one is sort of close to the action at the Venetian. And also, I should actually call out that I often watch the keynotes from the certification lounge, because if I'm going to the keynote room and watching the keynote, I get like, it's a great experience, and I recommend that everyone should do that once if they go to reInvent live. But one of the nice things about going to the certification lounge is, like I said, they have snacks and drinks and all of that stuff. So I can go and get my coffee and then refill it and then refill it, and just keep watching the keynote while this is happening. And there's no like shuffling by people, which you aren't going to do anyway. And I don't have a big enough mug for one trip of coffee there. So yeah, so the certification lounge is awesome. If you don't have a certification, check that out. Oh, I should also mention, if you don't have a certification, you should sign up for the Cloud Happy campaign that we were running, because as a part of that, you'll get access to the Cloud Practitioner, amongst other things, training that we have, and you can skill up on that pretty quickly. It's a very achievable one. So I think we'll put a link to the Cloud Happy thing in the chat as well. And make sure that you can get there easily. But the point is, sign up for that. Get through the training. Actually, enjoy it. It's actually really great stuff. And then go ahead and enjoy the benefits of being certified. You don't need to upload your certification to prove that you're certified. You go up to the certification lounge desk, and as you're entering, they will look you up in their system and give you a little sticker on your badge, so that in the future you'll just show them the sticker and get in more easily. So someone says they've heard that they won't have cert exams at reInvent this year. I haven't heard that. So that is, have you heard that, David? In general,
I haven't heard that yet, but I'll see if I can, as we're wrapping up here, I'll see if I can dig and find some info.
Oh, thanks. In general, I have found it's actually a really great experience to take the cert exams on site, because they have generally set up a big room. You walk up to the desk, and you can. I've like on my phone, I've signed up for the thing, and then literally taken a few steps over to the desk and said, "All right, I'm signed up for this certification exam." And so you go into the room, sit down at the computer, punch through all the things, and then you walk out with the certification. I did that when some of them had expired, and I needed to get them renewed on site. Yeah.
Okay, I have an answer for that one.
Oh, okay, and?
So it is correct that there will not be certification exams on site this year. However, and this is big because this can actually be money in your pocket, reInvent in-person registrants will receive a 50% discount for any AWS certification exam. So especially if you're doing like a professional exam, that's several $100s back in your pocket.
Right. And one of the things to call out too, though, is that you can do remote proctoring. So if you have a laptop along, you could potentially do it in your hotel room. You sit down at the desk there and show them the information on the online thing. And one of the benefits of doing it in a hotel room is that they'll probably not be too picky about all of the stuff that you have. I don't know if your office is anything like mine, but this particular rectangle looks pretty reasonable. But outside of that, that's a different story.
Yeah, I can't do certification exams in here. It's just there's too much stuff, so I have to go do it somewhere else.
Yeah. All right. So I think our last couple of tips are to recheck the session schedule as the keynote is going, and see if there's anything new, and just keep refreshing it, because a lot of times, even if you weren't expecting it, there could be something new that gets added that's pretty interesting. So definitely take a look at that, and then be really flexible, because the hallway track is the most important track, in my opinion. If you're on site in person, you should try to be making those connections with other people. People are really welcoming. They're friendly. They're there to get a good experience, but also to just have good community with people. So don't feel bad to be new if you're new to reInvent. Just do what you can. Be willing to engage in some conversation here and there. If you don't want to, that's okay. You just let people know, and they'll respect that too. So, but there's just so much good stuff to be had. Now, if you're doing it virtually, there's still more community that can be had. It doesn't have to be only on site, in person, bumping into people and having face-to-face conversation. You can definitely jump into conversation around reInvent. So maybe Twitter, but also we have our Discord server where there's a lot of conversation. A lot of really great people are there. And as much as I'm sure many of them will want to be at reInvent in person, a number of them won't be. And even some of them who are in person will be on the Discord as well. So it'll be sort of a connection for the community there. So definitely check that out. I don't know if there's much more to. Oh, I guess make sure that you check back to our channels here. YouTube is where we're going to be putting out a lot of our sort of coverage from on site. So if you're missing some of the stuff, then come back and take a watch through those things to sort of catch you up. And if you are also wanting to jump in, we're planning to have some live streams if we can get that working. So you can connect with a lot of the people who are on site, hear what they're seeing, what they're doing, and sort of bring those two worlds a bit closer together. Anything more that you wanted to add there, David?
No, I don't think so, but I will certainly be, I'll just say that I'll be hanging around the Pluralsight ACG Discord as well during reInvent, so feel free to connect with me on there. And so all of us people that are doing the remote thing this year can have our own community to celebrate the announcements that are coming out at reInvent. Awesome.
Yeah. And if you are there in person, we're going to have a big booth that is going to be, it's going to be hopping. There's going to be lots of swag, which we didn't even get into. Swag is like, There's awesome swag all over the place. But if you check out our booth, you can get some fun stuff, play some fun games, meet some great people, learn about what we've got and how it might help your organization, all sorts of things. But it's really, up to you. One of the things I'll just sort of show off here is this Cloud Happy shirt was from last year's reInvent, and it is not something you can get again. You have to go and get them on site in person when they're there while supplies last. So if you're at reInvent, check back at our booth. Actually, I think we're even going to have different T-shirts each day or something. I don't know. I don't know what the plan is, but it's awesome. All of the little bits I've seen are awesome. That's how I can say it so confidently. So. Thank you so much to all of you who have joined us. We really appreciate it. We appreciate the back and forth conversation because I think it becomes a more valuable stream when we can answer your questions rather than just talk about the things that we thought would matter. But I also really want to thank David because you've jumped on and added so much insight and both leading up to this and during the stream. So thank you so much. I know that people can catch a lot of your other live streams as well. Replays are available. There's a ton of great stuff that David's put out, so you should definitely check that out. I also wanted to thank the people who have been bringing this together to organize this. Kenzie and Wayne are working behind the scenes right now to make this happen, and we have more people on our team that are always supporting us as well. This has been fun, and I don't see any more questions. I just see that people feel that they've gotten some good stuff out of it, so I really appreciate you letting us know. I'm glad to hear that. Anything else to add, David, or should we wrap it up?
Just have a great reInvent.
All right. Keep being awesome, Cloud Gurus. Thanks so much.